One thing I've been hearing a lot lately, both from friends around me and from people on TV and on the radio, is this simple phrase: I just don't get it. And by the end of today's video, I want to challenge you to think about the times that you might say that. Those 5 words, I just don't get it, are a sign that you need to be thinking about things maybe differently. Let me give you some quick examples, and these are kind of silly examples, and I'll let you kind of figure out how the more serious ones are going. But one example is simply to say, I just don't get how my neighbor doesn't keep his lawn more green, right? Some of us might be judging our neighbors in that way. Or another example, I just don't get how my neighbor keeps his lawn so green and why he spends so much time on it. There's lots of times in life we might throw that phrase out, I just don't get it. I just don't get how she spends so much money on clothes. I just don't get how he spends so much money on cars. There's a lot of times we just throw that phrase out in a way to show frustration or complexities around who people are and why they do what they do. And I want to challenge you today to ask yourself the question, have you been saying, I just don't get it? Have you been pointing to neighbors, people in your life, people within your sphere of influence, and thinking in your mind or even saying with your lips, I just don't get it? Because if you're saying those words, or even if you're just thinking them, what that means is there's something wrong in your mind. There's a gap in knowledge. There's a gap in understanding that maybe you need to address. This is something that we saw happen in Jesus' life too. There were lots of people who followed Jesus and pointed their fingers at him and said, we just don't get it how you do things like that. In fact, one of the occasions where this happened is when Jesus just brought in his disciple named Matthew, also called Levi. Matthew was a tax collector. And so as Jesus was having dinner with Matthew, he was also having dinner with a lot of tax collectors and other people that the religious people called sinners. So what happened is these religious people, they swarmed around and they started to talk to Jesus' disciples. And basically what the Pharisees said, the religious people, they said, we just don't get it. How does your teacher associate and eat with people who are tax collectors and sinners? And it was in that moment that Jesus intervenes. He heard what was going on. He knew what was going on. And so he says this to them that speaks so much to us today. In moments where we find ourselves pointing the fingers at others and just saying, I just don't get it. That's when we need to think about these words that Jesus himself said. These words are from Matthew chapter 9. Jesus said, on hearing this, Jesus said, it is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. Then he says this, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. For I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. Again, he said, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Go learn what this means. He was talking to these religious people who were trying to teach the disciples a few things. He says, no. If you just don't get what I'm doing, that's because there's a gap in what you know. You need to go and learn. And mercy and sacrifice, 2 very simple things to understand. Sacrifice includes everything you might do for God or everything that you might change for him. And mercy is everything that you might do for the people around you. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. And what Jesus was telling them in that moment is that when maybe you find someone that you don't understand or you don't get, that's not your time to judge them. That's your cue to go and learn. Go and learn what is required of you. God desires mercy, not sacrifice. In those moments where you just don't get people, that doesn't mean that they should conform to the way you see things. They don't have to sacrifice. They don't have to change. But rather, as you come forward to a neighbor that you don't understand, that's your cue to show mercy. Show them the mercy. Go and learn what this means for you. And to close things off, I want to give you one practical tip. What does it mean to show mercy to someone? What does it mean to practice mercy? It simply means that you invest your love before trust is earned. Before someone has a chance to earn up a level of trust, you, by default, extend to them love and kindness. And in so doing, what you will be doing is building a path, maybe building a bridge that will allow you to learn what their life is like and to understand why they see things the way they do. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. And as you live out that mercy role and extend love to people who have not yet earned your trust, what you'll find is that you become a reflector for the kind of love that Jesus showed to you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Pastor Mike here from Time of Grace. Thanks so much for checking out this podcast. We certainly would love this message to reach more and more people. So if you wouldn't mind rating and reviewing this podcast, it would bring it to more people's eyes, and we pray this message into more people's hearts. Thanks for your support, and we'll talk to you soon.